Yeah, just call. Okay. Tomorrow's kind of crazy. Places you go out there and stay tomorrow. Tomorrow's not good, but Thursday I'm up and
I need a magnifying glass.
ready? Yeah. Okay, Greenville City Council will come to order. Please call the roll.
Godwin.
Here.
Norris.
Here.
Rogers.
Here.
Schmidt.
Here.
Whitaker.
Here.
Brown. Ely.
Here.
Okay, if I can get everyone to stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Evening, everyone. Looks like we have a nice full house. It's awesome. Approval of the minutes that was emailed out. If there's no corrections or addition, they will stand approved as emailed out. Approval of the current financial report that was emailed out. I will entertain a motion to accept that. Moved by Mr. Godwin to accept the financial report. Call the roll.
Godwin.
Yes.
Norris.
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Schmidt.
Yes.
Whitaker.
Yes.
Ely.
Yes.
Excuse me. Approval of the agenda. There is one correction to be made on the summary on the ordinance supplemental professional service IT, the amount of $54,022. That needs to be added. I'll take a motion to approve with the amendment or the
Move to approve the agenda as amended.
Been moved by Mr. Schmidt to approve the agenda as amended. Any discussion? Call the roll.
Godwin.
Yes.
Norris.
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Schmidt.
Yes.
Whitaker.
Yes.
Ely.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to public hearing. I believe we had someone from the Red Cross, correct?
Right. So I'll stand up here. So most of the people over here on one side are friends and volunteers and administrators from the Miami Valley Red Cross. They've come to recognize a few people, and in order to get this started, I'll introduce Lynn Gump, Red Cross Miami Valley, Ohio Chapter Executive Director. So.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
If you would.
Then if you would just state your full name and address.
So I'm Lynn Gump, and I'm at 6067 Hillgrove Southern, Greenville, Ohio. And I'm here tonight, thank you very much for having us, to introduce a really special story. So you guys probably know that the Red Cross responds to what we call a family fire. The smallest of incident, but it's the largest incident that we respond to. Nearly 62,000 of those disasters happen every year that we respond to. In 2014, the Red Cross started something that we call the Home Fire Campaign, and with the intention of reducing death due to family fire. And to do that, we install free smoke alarms, and we provide education on how to get out and how to have a family fire plan. Last year alone, we installed over 1,200 alarms in the Miami Valley area, with 55 of them here in Darke County. There's one very special installation that we'd like to talk to you about. And to do that, I'd like to introduce our chapter chair, and that's Brad Kennedy.
Good evening, Mayorwoman and Council. So I want to tell you a quick story regarding Mrs. Susan Brown, who reached out to the American Red Cross requesting installation of fire alarms, which is a service the Red Cross provides, as Lynn Gump just previously mentioned. We had two volunteers, Mr. William Bunger and Mr. Rick Hyatt, that came to her residence, did the fire alarm installation in 2018, and went over a fire evacuation plan for her residents, as well as some general fire safety practices. Her intuition saved both her and her husband, because in December 28th of 2022 in the early morning hours, they had a structure fire. Those fire alarms woke her and her husband up and gave them the time that they needed to get themselves and their pets out of the residence. It's with great appreciation that we look on our volunteers that take their time to provide this service to the members of our community, and with great appreciation that we honor Mrs. Susan Brown for taking the time and the initiative to do that with her residents. And Mayor, Woman, it would be an honor for us if you would present a certificate of appreciation to Mr. Bunker, and then I'm going to leave some pins. These are for your council members up there.
Wow.
If you would.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Kennedy. We appreciate all you do for the Red Cross and for our community, for all the volunteers. It's great to have everybody here. So it's my pleasure to present the certificates as well as the life-saving pins of Red Cross volunteers, William Bunger and Rick Hyatt. So if you come on up here, you get a certificate. There, this recognition of volunteer efforts of the American Red Cross and your support of the Home Fire Campaign. The investment of your time and talents of the Red Cross through your installation of smoke alarms in our community has directly resulted in the lives saved of Susan and Michael Brown. The Red Cross is only able to carry out this mission because of the dedication of volunteers like you. So thank you very much. So Hyatt, want this pin for him? Okay. So look, so in order, just talk about that just for a second. Little did Mrs. Brown know at the time, they're called the Red Cross back in 2018, that had the volunteers come and install a fire smoke detectors, safety information, and created a customized home fire escape plan should a fire break out. Little did Mrs. Brown know at the time, they're called the Red Cross saved her and her husband's life. And be woken in the middle of the night and from the well of the smoke alarms. She managed to get herself, her husband, who was recovering from a recent surgery, and their 5 dogs out of their home quickly. So we're Red Cross, we're grateful to Mrs. Brown for her actions and grateful to volunteers who installed her life-saving smoke alarms. We'd like to honor you now too. So, Mike, you're the only one here?
Yep.
So I'll give you a take, come on up. Still recovering. Pin. So, good deal. Okay, so then Gene Kine, this is Red Cross Disaster Program Manager, would like to say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As he stated, I am Jean Klein. I'm the Disaster Program Manager for the Red Cross Ohio, the Ohio Miami Valley chapter. I'm here to kind of wrap up the Red Cross session. I wanted to take this opportunity to recognize the amazing work of the Greenville Fire Department. The Red Cross is able to carry out its mission with the help of our wonderful volunteers and through many of our community partnerships, like the one that we have with the Greenville Fire Department. For the last 5 years, the Greenville Fire Department has participated in our home fire campaign. In addition, Greenville Fire also has operated their own smoke alarm installation program, which furthers the efforts to keep Greenville residents safe. In appreciation, I'd like to present this certificate to Fire Chief Russell Thompson. Thank you for joining.
Get a picture
and
over
I'll
there,
go-
turn around that way so they can get
Okay.
a picture.
And I'd like to go ahead and read this, if I can take a moment. In recognition of your life-saving firefighting efforts within our community and your support of the American Red Cross Home Fire Campaign, your investment in the partnership strengthens our community and assists our American Red Cross in carrying out the mission to help our community prepare for, respond to, and recover from home fires and disasters. Thank you, sir.
Okay, unless there's anything else from any of the other volunteers, yeah, wrap that up and we can move on to the
Okay.
next open.
Does council have any questions on this program or anything? Okay. All right, really appreciate coming up and giving out the plaques. I think it's an awesome program, so thank you. Moving on, public hearing. Anyone else?
Difficult to follow that.
Jeff, did you state your name?
Jeff Sober, 310 East Park Drive.
Thanks.
Couple of housekeeping things, because I didn't have enough time to kind of speak. A couple meetings ago, it was asked how many dollars in taxes that I pay on the 14 acres on 121 that the proposed frontier development would go on for affordable senior housing. It was $261.66, of which the city's portion is $27.60. So that helps you with anything. I kind of real quick, just, and then we'll go on to this other topic. The senior housing on 121, some of you that voted no about it, do you have any reasons you could kind of provide me so that I can understand where you're coming from? What it is you'd like to see in lieu of? What is there anything I could get any feedback?
Jeff, we've talked on the phone before about my inclination to lean towards workforce affordable housing rather than use our land here in Greenville for.
Can I ask you real quick what you mean by that? I think we had a workforce affordable housing project last year that we proposed, but that was
Single-family housing, single-family housing for people making more than what the limits are here.
okay. So
To bring young families into Greenville, encouraging them to own their own home, send their kids to our schools, pay income tax while working within the city. That's what I want to see.
Okay. Anybody else, like Chris or Doug? I never heard you guys say anything, so I don't know if you have an opinion on it or.
Yeah, I guess my whole thing is just the location of it, Jeff, is, we had that for a light industrial or commercial, and for the zoning to be changed, I guess that's my biggest thing. Do I oppose the type of housing being single story, the 42 units? I agree with that. I agree with the need because of the waiting list of not only the Fox Run and Treaty Manor. So I agree with that part, but I just have a big hook with, big hang up with the location, the actual location of it.
Okay, about that, the property is unique in that it's rolling topography, so, and there's two big storm easements that run across it, making it difficult to use for most commercial uses. So if I can't rezone it to something else, I don't, do you have any ideas what you'd like to see go there? Because I'm trying to wonder what I'm going to do with that property.
Right. And that's what we talked about, is the different commercial entities that we started with there. Reeser's Sign Shop, anything that's a retail sales or light manufacturing or
I think you're
assembly
talking
or-
about, sorry.
Yeah, in that whole area, from one end to the
Yeah,
other.
the research sign, that behind Casey's, I understand more. The 121, none of the neighbors had any objections. Multiple ones came. I mean, nobody felt like it was infringing upon them.
Right.
Okay, okay. Anything else? Not, we'll move on. Okay, so what we passed out here is, you probably noticed I cleared the trees behind Kroger, getting ready to farm that. And so what I did was I penciled out a hypothetical high-income housing subdivision, because I want to discuss it with you, and hopefully you can understand the differences. Maybe I can begin the discussion from a city standpoint about what is cost-effective to do, what generates us revenue, where do we need to go for this. So what I have here is a layout of the majority of the land on that parcel. The ravines are actually part of the parcel. I didn't include them in here. But basically, if you go back Lease Avenue, you could have a street go straight back and then veer to the right and then end with a cul-de-sac. And what I kind of did here was rough out 31 lots with dimensions on it that you could do two different types of thing on it. I know there's been talk of single-family housing, and I think the thought process is that it generates the most money for the city, and that's actually not the case. If you are familiar with Versailles at all, where they have new housing on Reed Avenue, where they have those doubles of zero lot lines, and I think Bonanza has done one or two of those on, is it at Sater Street? Those are the highest bang for the buck with respect to real estate, and if done well, income tax for the city. So what I did here was I took the number of lots, and assuming you did single family, I've got a value per lot, assuming what value would come in on real estate taxes. Again, it's just a rough number. You can kind of play with it. And what if every one of these was built out and valued at 300,000, what the amount of revenue that, or amount of total real estate value, and how much real estate tax revenue it would generate. So as you can see, the city's money doesn't come from real estate taxes. They do get some, of course, but that's not the lion's share. It's from income tax. So from your perspective, the goal should be to get these high revenue earners. In the past, both at a visitor bureau on Main Street and myself met with Whirlpool and talked with their kind of young people group, which was from late 20s to mid 50s, and talked about the housing need. All of them live outside of Dark County, but one. And we need to get those folks back here. I think it's very important, and I think it will also help get the amenities that we need, because presently our per capita income is too low to attract Chick-fil-A, some of the steak eateries, some of the things that I hear on a daily basis that people want. So this will be a way to tackle that. Now, I can do this more fancy. I can determine what you would need to do to generate the levels to get appropriate businesses in there, if you guys gave me some ideas. But for right now, this is a rough idea. So then what I did was I took the income tax, totaled them all, and then figured out a payback time if you were to front load the infrastructure cost. So roughing this out, I think it's 1,200 foot. I came up with a rough value of $800,000 for the street, cul-de-sac, curb, storm sewer, water lines. So, you know, that's malleable. I mean, with COVID, it's hard to say. Pipe prices are crazy. So, but it's a workable number, and a lift station, because that would be required on that site. So then I have the second, and I'll call it the professional senior condos, which are these people that I was talking about at Whirlpool, medical people from, whether it be Wayne Hospital, Family Health. They're having difficulty finding places for people living, and having an attractive place where people can live and not have to maintain anything, I think is important, and it's what they're looking for, which we have very little inventory of. So if you look down at the payback time frame, let's assume that you fronted the $800,000 for the infrastructure. You put the infrastructure in. I donate land to do that, and then we had it all built out at these hypothetical values. Your time frame for return on single family would be like 10.3 years. I have here. On the professional senior condos, you're conceivably drawing in medical that pays much higher, and you can have a city payback time frame of 6.23 years. So this just gives you a rough idea, gives you something to digest. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. But I think this is a different type of housing that I'm assuming you would be in favor of, but it is cost prohibitive to do because up front, say for instance, on the professional senior condos, someone's got to upfront the 12.4 million to build the housing for those people to live. So it kind of gives you a kind of an idea about where the numbers sit. And so I hope you'll look at that and give me some feedback, down the road and whatever you might think.
Jeff, what's the best way, if one of the council members wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to reach out to you?
This is email, gpscomputers@gmail.com.
Say that real slower.
GPS computers, plural, @gmail.
Okay.
I think from my perspective, and this is just all out of my head, that's the quickest way to drag up your income levels, which I think is everyone here's goal, to get some of the amenities that you want to attract the younger people. I mean, there's multiple ways to think about this, but you got to start somewhere. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
When you talk to the people at Whirlpool, I think I remember us talking about that. They were indicating that they were interested in no maintenance because they're working all the time. They want to enjoy their weekends and they don't want to be messing around with keeping up their.
They want their free time to do whatever it is they so choose. And the one thing that we heard around the room was that if there was something here, they would live here.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
We were talking about that.
And there's some other, I don't know how familiar you are with what's going on in Union City, Indiana. There's going to be a lot of tech people come in that command very large salaries and are going to have difficulties finding places to live. So I think this is something that you should look into further and, feel free to reach out about it.
So this driveway here would be if you're going on the left side of Kroger's.
Yeah. So
Drive
let's
basically right into it.
Yeah, and then you could just kind of drive straight and back. This is just a get or done style drawing.
Right.
But
There's no, and this might be a question to Ryan, but there's no way to connect this into another street back in?
no, it's all outside the court.
Not without annexation and land purchases
Right,
to hook it back around to King's.
right. I just was thinking okay, future, do we want to leave an avenue to be able to continue on or something? Because it seems like we've had some lack of planning over the years on that end where we should have kept a road to go further south or further north and we didn't.
The road's there, it just dead ends into a field that goes outside of the city and
Right.
has always been owned by someone in that neighborhood that has held on.
Any other questions for Jeff?
Hey, thank you for your time.
All right, thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Moving on, anyone else, public hearings?
Okay, I have two things. First, I want to say that my name is Janet Dieter and I live at 303 Harmon.
Thank you.
And I was one of those people that got one of those smoke detectors. I had nobody to put one in for me. And the gentleman that came, it was through the Red Cross. And I had one that I bought, but I didn't have the equipment to put it in. And so he came and put that one in, and then he put in one of those. And then it was, I don't know, maybe a year or so later, I had forgotten about something on the stove and a lot of smoke went off and that detector went off. So I wish I could have thanked them personally for that because I never would have gotten a smoke detector installed. So I appreciate what they did for the people who could take advantage of that program. Okay, so second thing, I was downtown today and we're losing a business on Broadway. I don't know if you guys know that, but I took a friend out to lunch. We ate at the Montage. And right next door, I think it is called Refined, and they're leaving. And so I stopped in there because I noticed their signs. And so I talked to the lady, and this was in the old candy store, that candy boutique store. And anyway, they're moving to Laura because that's where the people live that own that business. So they'll be there, I think, until the end of March. And they have some Greenville items that they make. So I'm going to go in there tomorrow and purchase that. Then the last thing I want to bring up, and this is a concern that others have shared with me, so I said I'd bring it. You closed Ohio Street, and I go down that street a lot. And I have to agree with what the person said. There was no notice that that was going to close except on Facebook, if you do computers, and or in the paper, Early Bird, if you get it. And I traveled a lot for years back and forth to Dayton, through Phillipsburg. I've been through Covington, and I have to say, those little towns like that always posted a sign 30 days or more saying this street is going to be closed at such and such a date for such and such a time. And I go that way to go to my church. And when I stopped at somebody's house and they said, hey, they're closing Ohio Street, because I hadn't read the Early Bird yet, I'm like, nah. And I went down there and I didn't see any signs. And I can't even imagine the people that were coming into town on Monday and meet up with that sign. I mean, yeah, finding out it's closed. So all I'm asking that if you close any other major streets in town, is it possible to put up a sign saying it's going to be closed as of this date and not, if I had been going to work, I would have been late that day because I had no idea that that street was going to be closed. So I just, on behalf of the person who shared their concern, and I have to agree with them, please consider doing that the next time so that we know in advance, so we can plan our routes, how we're going to get back and forth to church, to school, to a job, or to a business. So that's all I have for this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Public hearing.
Good evening. Most of you know me, Curtis Locker, the water superintendent. Unless you have lived under a rock the last month and a half, I think we've all heard about the East Palestine train derailment. We've had, I don't want to say quite a few, but a few concerned citizens call in the office and expressing their concerns on our drinking water with our well fields and the river that we have behind the plant there. Once everybody kind of gets those, I will go into depth a little bit more on that, but I can explain that. So what we do is yearly, we get a monitoring schedule from the Ohio EPA, and we're required to, one of our contaminants we're required to test for is VOCs. It stands for volatile organic compounds. And one of those is vinyl chloride, which is the main component that was released in that train derailment. That is the one that they decided to set fire to and burn off into the atmosphere. Fortunately for us, we completed our first round of testing back on January 5th. So we had a good baseline to start with. And out of an abundance of caution, and that's really all it was, we were not required by the Ohio EPA or the federal EPA to do this. We elected to run a second round of VOC testing just to kind of put the public at ease. And as you'll see, we had a non-detect, that less than 0.5 parts per billion. They have to show that because that's what's called an LOQ. It's a length of qualification, which is basically that's as low as they can actually read with that meter. So they're not allowed to call it a zero, but it's the same as a zero. It's considered a non-detect. And if you flip to the back side of the page, the vinyl chloride number is again a non-detect. Now, when we pulled those samples, we were running a blended source of our wells and the river at the same time. So this sample that we pulled reflects all of our sources, and which means all of our sources were a non-detect. And for anybody who's worried, the water is perfectly fine to drink, and none of the contaminants have made it this way, and we have zero reason to believe that they would. So, and if anybody, any public or anybody has any questions, they can feel free to contact my office. I can go complete nerd and bore you all night long on the results, and Anything else, just don't ask me about the trains. I'm not an engineer. So the only thing I know about trains is I used to beat Bradford in football. That's it. So that's it. So thank you. Have a good night.
That was very good that you were proactive in doing that.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it was out of caution. At first, we were kind of like, we're probably not gonna mess with it because nobody's asked, but then we had enough phone calls where we just went ahead and do it. The test doesn't cost a whole lot on our budget, so figured why not? So just out of safety.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Curtis. All right, anyone else? It's a busy night for a public hearing.
Good evening, Russ Thompson, Fire Chief for the City of Greenville. I know last meeting, you was advised that Captain Brandenburg would give you a briefing on rail safety. He is the team leader for the Dark County Hazmat team and the captain with our department. Unfortunately, he had another engagement, so he asked me to come in this place. So I'm gonna give you some basic rail information for the city and the county that he passed on to me and I'm passing on to you. So here in the city of Greenville, the RJ Corman line runs from Ansonia to behind the Veterans Home and then Anderson's. There's approximately 5 to 6 miles of track in the city, 12 miles total in the county. It operates at about 10 miles an hour max speed, and it pulls approximately 5 to 10 cars at a time through the city. The Anderson's ethanol ships 27 million gallons on rail each year. That's an average of 17 to 18 cars per week. Nutrient Aging Solutions on Ohio Street that you should be familiar with also. Its primary hauls ash cars and dry fertilizer, and that's typically in the spring and in the fall. As far as responding to a derailment in the city, we feel there's no extremely hazardous materials carried on the RJ Corman line. The worst case scenario would be a fire in the city involving ethanol cars. In this type of situation, we would respond with our duty crew and a recall of our off-duty personnel, and most likely have multiple departments coming mutual aid with more personnel to mitigate that situation. We also have at our disposal the Dark County Hazmat team, and I'll give you a little bit more information on them. And then we do also contact appropriate agencies about the incident, starting with our local EMA office in Dark County, and if necessary, reach out for the state EMA. And you can also expect, if this is a hazardous situation, other federal, like the NTBS, is that right? Yeah, the National Transportation Safety Board, and the EPA. We also, just for our biggest concern, one of the biggest concerns with this is being able to get to it. If it's in a remote spot and it's not right at a crossing, we could have difficulty actually getting to it. If you're not aware, we do have at our disposal, the Dark County Sheriff's Department has a drone, and we can request that drone be put in the air and give us an aerial view of what we're dealing with, whether it's here in the city or if it's in the county. So going out into the county, the RJ Corman line again has approximately 6 to 7 miles of track from Greenville to Ansonia. Greenville Township has approximately 3 miles of that track. The CSX line, which runs through Union City, Ansonia, Arcanum, and Russia, there's about 21 miles of track in Dark County. CSX had 48 high hazard flammable trains on rail in 2022. Total 3,926 hazardous material train cars in 2022. By no means does this include every train that came through this county. So what's that response look like? It's not much different than the response that we would provide here in the city. Whatever fire department is responsible for that accident, there's going to have the authority having jurisdiction for the duration of this event. They're most likely going to have multiple agencies from this county coming to respond, provide mutual aid. The Dark County Hazmat team is at their disposal and can be activated. We also have the State Emergency Response Plan for Hazmat, and we can also contact the Dayton Regional Hazmat team if needed for additional resources. And again, all appropriate state and federal agencies would be notified appropriately, and we also have the Dark County Sheriff's Office that we can rely on for the drone. The Dark County Hazmat Team currently has 30 members. 20 of those members are your Greenville Fire Department members. We maintain, the county does, through the Dark County Fire Chiefs Association, maintains 3 trailers located here in Greenville that are housed by the county out of the facility out on Martin Street. Used to be the state garage. So those trailers consist of an entry trailer for making a hazmat entry on any hazmat incident in this county, a decon trailer for deconning the victims and firefighters that could have been contaminated from the hazardous materials. And we also have at our disposal a foam trailer. That's the county's cachet of foam for that ethanol fire that we're talking about. If we need additional foam, we have the Andersons at our disposal that can give us more if we would need it. All the team members from this department are at the operations or technician level for hazardous materials. And everybody's trained and familiar with trains. Maybe not so much the derailment, but exactly what they're looking for if one would derail, like placards, the car design, access to getting the safety data sheets on what's being carried and whatnot. And then by pure coincidence, if you're not aware, on May 4th, the local emergency planning commission, now the Dark County EMA's office, is doing a tabletop exercise on a train derailment on the CX line up in either Ansonia or Arcanum's area. So all those departments that are up on the CX line are invited to that tabletop for a mock drill on a table. This is purely coincidental because this training has actually been on the schedule since October. So it was already on the minds of people that this training needed to be revisited from time to time. And it just happens to be right after 2 train derailments in the state of Ohio. And then to be proactive, the governor's office, who's made a lot of effort on rail safety in the state of Ohio over these last couple instances, trying to get more, has worked with CSX and I lost the name of the other one. Does anybody remember the name of the train that was involved? It's the East Palestine Railway. Norfolk. There you go, thank you. He's worked with both of them to provide free training to first responders throughout the state over the next month or so. So we're taking advantage of, with assistance of LEPC, we're sending Captain Brandenburg, again, the team leader for the hazmat team, and Assistant Chief Greg Miller, who is the Union City, Ohio Fire Department. Those 2 will be going up to the Bellevue train yard on April 1st for an 8-hour seminar, a refresher training more or less on train derailment and overall hazmat safety on the railways. And they'll bring that information back to the county and spread the word on what they learned over that 8-hour session. Other than that, that's a snapshot of what we have here in this county, and we believe that we're prepared for a worst case scenario.
Russ, how is the hazmat funding? Where does that come from?
So there's a variety of sources. Again, it goes to the Dark County Fire Chiefs Association. So a portion of our dues as member departments, our annual dues, a small portion goes to the hazmat team. We also get funding from the LEPC through the EMA's office, and there's also a, I can't think of what it's called. It's basically not, it's like a fee for service. It's a county resolution that allowed each community to assess of a certain value, and we pay that annually. It goes through the LEPC and it winds up in the hazmat account of the Dark County Hazmat Team. This primarily goes to training and upkeeping the equipment on those trailers.
And you feel confident that the equipment we have is good?
Correct. We've been very fortunate over the last several years of grant opportunities that have been located either to the hazmat team, to Captain Brandenburg's office, or the EMA office. We got some pretty state-of-the-art equipment on those trailers, and it's maintained accordingly because it's one of those things, we don't ever use it, thank goodness, except for in training. So it's actually in really good condition because of that.
Any questions for Russ on
Russ, how fast do the trains go outside of the city of Greenville, like Ansonia, or how fast are those?
Faster than ours.
Huh?
Faster than ours.
Yeah.
I don't.
How much faster?
I really do not know.
They don't go 60 miles an hour or anything like that.
Yes,
Yes,
they do.
Union City does.
Yes, they do.
I really
get
do
railroad
not
track
know.
there.
I know they seem like they go fast. When I'm over there, I really do not know how fast they're going, if they're doing 60 or if they're doing 50.
Who regulates that speed?
Again, you're above my head. I'm not.
It's
I don't
federal
work for the railway
regulation, they
company.
bypass county and state regulations, the counties and the states don't control the railroads, the federal government does.
Any other questions on the hazmat response?
I just want to say thank you because,
Yeah.
you know, it's really important. You know, you don't think about, I keep going back to this. We have a great city and we have great people that work it. And then, you know, this is just another example of how well our employees and both city and county serve their community. So hats off to you. Thank you.
Yep, well done.
Yes.
Thanks,
All right, thanks, Russ. Anyone else for public hearing? Ken, would you like to come talk? Yeah.
Just the chiefing.
All right, moving on to administration reports. Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Council President. I just got one other thing in particular, but it was great having those guys come in from Red Cross. It was certainly, it's nice to see them working with the fire department in partnership. They've been doing this for years, you know, what a great project to put smoke detectors in for free. It's pretty neat. So the other thing else I got is kind of an announcement for our community. It's like, yeah, we have so many stray cats. We have people come in all the time. It's a crazy subject, and there's places all over town that have wild cats, and they cause a lot of nuisance to a lot of neighborhoods. And I just want to reach out and tell people, it's like, I know you're trying to help out and you think the cats aren't doing well, and maybe they need some food, but maybe they find food. That's all there is to it. They're like birds, they find food, and that's what they do. And they really don't need a lot of help, but man, it's like they sure cause a nuisance to your neighbors, so we wish you wouldn't be feeding them as much. You know, some places they say that if you're feeding the cat their ears, then maybe it's your expense to take them to the vet, you know, so I don't think we'd go that far, but we do need to cut down on that. It causes a great nuisance and problems for the city, so quit feeding the cats. All right, so I'll just pass in. Time's going on. I'll leave y'all with that, right?
We still have the,
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say something about it.
we have the line item under Ryan still.
We still have a spade and neuter program with the Humane Society. I was gonna bring it up. We do, but then I think I just don't think it works, but you got such an overrun of cats right now, there's no possible way we're making a dent in it. I said, there's just too many. They have too many litters of kittens. And there's no way that what we put into it will ever make a difference. I shouldn't say it wouldn't make any difference, because I'm sure somewhere it does help out. But in the long run, we're not gaining ground. You know, the cats are the ones that are gaining ground, I think, so.
One step forward and two steps back.
Yeah. So, and if we weren't doing it, I think we put $4,000 a year, $4,000 a year, $2,000 every half. And I don't know how many cats that is, but it's not near enough. So I don't think there's any amount of money and more of that we can do, because you still have to have people go out and trap and catch them, and have somebody pretty much volunteer the cheaper end of doing neuter and spay and take them back out and release them again. It's just, it's cumbersome. So it's hard to say how much you'd have to put in to try to do anything be good. But the biggest thing is we need to do is that people need to quit feeding so many. There's places where there's 20, 30 cats around one or two houses. You know, it's just like, holy cow, it's just too much.
Holy cats.
I know people holy cat. I know people that can't go outside their house because there's so much cat droppings, or whatever you want to call it, that all over the porch, you can't step out without even stepping in it. Can't open the windows in the winter time, it was summertime, because it stinks so bad, and they don't have any cats. It's like, it's a shame. And it's tough on some of the neighbors, so, again, we'll feed the cats. Thanks, that's all I'm gonna add.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Safety Service Director, Mr. Delk.
Thank you, Mr. President. To add a little bit to the mayor's speech there. So our TNR is with the Humane Society Trap and Release. So if someone does have a cat problem, they can call the Humane Society and they'll either go trap them for them or they'll bring you traps to trap them. Now, the holdup there is they have to have permission. So if they're at a certain house and that person is one feeding them and doesn't want them trapped and removed, that's where we run into a lot of problems. But if you're a neighbor, we can legally put traps on their property. They'll trap them, they come and get them, spay and neuter them, and then they release them back into the same area that they were trapped. And to the mayor's point, so we put $4,000 a year in our budget, and then the Humane Society matches that, so it's a 50-50 partnership.
So last year, how much did we spend of that 4,000?
About $3,000 of our portion, so $6,000 worth.
Okay.
I'm speculating here. I think the females are around $75 and the males are around $60.
Anything else?
Yes. Oh, yes. Sorry. First, North Ohio Street, and Mrs. Deere, I think that's a great idea on the North Ohio Street project. We ran into an issue with timing and they weren't sure because they were waiting on materials when it would start. And we had about 3 days notice that, hey, we're starting on Monday. So it was a little quicker, but I do think it's a great idea to add to our plan. So I'll look into that. With the North Ohio Street project, I just want to let everyone know at some point here through this project, the intersection of Ohio and Martin Street will be closed. And it's going to be detoured around on 127. We already have an approved detour route through ODOT that'll take you 127 to 49 and back into the city. So it is going to be that portion of the project. They're estimating about a 2-week time frame. I've already talked to them about, keeping it at a minimum and trying to flag when we can flag, and plating at night and on the weekend so that we can keep traffic open there as much as possible, but it is going to create some road closure of the intersection, which is going to be a major inconvenience for people.
You said about 2 weeks. Do they have any rough idea on when that may take place though?
6 to 8 weeks. So what we're waiting on is the directional boring crew for the water lines, because a lot of it is water line tie-in. And when the project started Monday, the directional bore said he was about 4 to 6 weeks out. So somewhere in that time frame.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then there's going to be a traffic light installed, which that'll create some road closures, but most of that work they can do from the sides. It's those water tie-ins that really are going to affect it the most. Second thing, just a little information about Rumpke. As you're all aware, we're going with Rumpke for a 1-year contract. That contract starts May 1. So I'm working with Rumpke right now. They're currently, and this is not finalized, so I won't share it with you, the whole thing, but they're working on a flyer to get out to all the residents on what the cost is going to be and their procedures and what they'll accept. The biggest change that I think will confuse people, so Rumpke is no longer a certified composting facility. So before, when you would buy a compost sticker, yard waste sticker, have a yard waste bin, they would separate that and keep that separate. And the whole purpose is so it doesn't go into a landfill. They will still take yard waste. It just gets mixed in with the trash now because they're not allowed to house it at their property. It has to be mixed in with the trash. It's an EPA thing. Don't ask me, but it's the rules. They would still take it. It's just mixed in with trash versus separated out. So with like the current yard, so there won't be yard waste stickers anymore available. So they're reaching out to all the businesses that sell them to us now and either doing a trade or a buyout. And then anyone who's already purchased them, they will honor them and keep picking that up until they run out. The other addition is we will have 4 pickups, 4 large item pickups, like call them spring and fall cleanups now. I guess it's spring, fall, summer, and winter now. So we've kind of separated those out to 4 different times over the year.
Will that be on the city's website?
Yes, yep.
And is there any way we, like council could get a heads up so we could announce that to the public that watches the meetings?
Absolutely.
Now, they're gonna have the addition of the recycling toters
Yes.
instead of just the red bins.
So right now you can keep your 18-gallon red bin, or you can upgrade to a residential 65 or 95-gallon recycling cart for an additional $4 per month.
And you don't have to have a contract with Rumpke to, I found this out after I got rid of my toter at my house, that they don't pick my red tote up no more. You have to have a toter or trash bags, because I have a dumpster.
Oh, if you just have a toter out there?
Yeah. And
We can't renegotiate till next year. No, we cannot. Interesting.
But yeah, if you don't have a,
So if you have a bag out with it, they'll stop and pick it up. But if you don't have a bag out with it, they won't pick it up.
yes, they won't pick it up.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll rent you a residential recycling cart.
I'm sure they will.
$4, come on.
Might do that.
Clarence, are you saying that they won't pick up your red bin?
Yeah, they don't pick up a red bin unless you have a contract with them, which is you gotta have a toter or the trash bag.
Huh,
That's something I missed and it's something we all missed.
I was gonna say, I didn't realize that.
But they drive right by your house anyway.
It doesn't surprise me. Recycling is extremely expensive.
Yeah, I pay $125 a month for cardboard.
Yeah. Any more questions on Rumpke? Early birds. So after the last meeting, the mayor and I had a meeting with the early bird advocate managers for the drivers and the editor, and met with them. And just so everyone's aware, they understand the problem. I think they're just as frustrated as we are. They're struggling with employees and personnel and getting them to deliver them the proper way. A couple of things that came out of that meeting. One, if there is 2 papers laying on the ground in front of a residence, the delivery driver is not supposed to keep dumping them there when you get 6. Second big thing, if anyone ever doesn't want a paper, they can call and say, don't deliver a paper here any longer. I don't look at it. I don't want it. That's an option. And then the third one, and I've been doing it, but just so the public knows, like I'll gladly forward the concerns on, but they said it is better for them to track it if you're actually contacting the early bird. So weekly, I send them pictures. When I drive around town, I just take pictures of where they're all laying and I just send them some again this evening. So they're working through it, and they're constantly trying to train their drivers and get through this this headache, I guess, with this right now. But we did hear you, and we are working on that as well.
I haven't got one in 3 months. How ironic. They don't deliver where I live anymore.
They don't like you.
They're looking for drivers.
Maybe they're sending a message, huh?
Yeah.
On the wrong side of the tracks.
It's on the wrong side of the tracks.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else on that? We will move on to sidewalk. So I passed out a little pamphlet there for everyone to review. So basically, I'll go through this tonight. What I kind of asked of council tonight is if they're good with everything here and we want to move the sidewalk program forward. What that'll take is next council meeting, Mr. Reaman will prepare legislation, a resolution of necessity to start moving this forward and get the sidewalk program started. So the first one is just a map of phase 1. I think I've already shared that with all of you last discussions, but it's basically the yellow is the project area. That's all kind of the main thoroughfares through and around Greenville. Your purple is already completed sidewalks, and then the red up there on Ohio Street, which it's not technically going to be a sidewalk, but it is going to be a shared use bicycle path, and then sidewalks the rest of the way up to Martin Street. So since that one's already getting addressed, that one is red on this phase, what we're calling the phase 1 map. So what will happen if council's wanting to move forward with everything? We've already did engineer's estimates and did the inspection on phase 1. So this letter will get sent out to all the property owners. We have to send them out certified mail so we make sure that they actually hit the property owner themselves. A couple of things. So the first thing is, we kind of talked last time on the smaller trip hazards, if just a piece has shifted it like a ½ inch or less, there's a company that can come in and grind that section off, and then you don't have to pour or tear up all the concrete and do it all. It's a much cheaper option. In this entire project, to do every trip hazard that we identified that we can do that way is a price tag of about $60,000. My thought process is the city cover that portion of the project, the cutting portion, and then the rest of them are ones that you just can't cut, whether it's too cracked or moved too much. If you have too much movement, you can't cut that much material off of a sidewalk, or it'll just make it leak and crack, and we'll just have problems with it down the road. So that's kind of the first part. As we kind of work through this, so what will happen is letters will get sent out. Homeowners will have until July 31st to complete the work themselves. If they choose to complete the work themselves, you'll still have to come in and get a permit, so it can be inspected, but we'll waive the permit fees. You will still have to get a street opening bond or a right-of-way, what we call a right-of-way bond, to perform that work, or your contractor will have to do that. And then we'll come out, recheck them. It's good to go. Then we'll put together our bid. So in August, then we'll put together our bid. We'll bid that out, all the remainder of the sections that need replaced, and then those will get replaced. So if you would happen to go the assessment route, so it'd be a 5-year period to pay that back. We were going to offer a 30% reduction in that cost if you qualified for the homestead reduction on the through the county. And then we were going to offer a 5% discount if you paid for the work in full to move that forward. Let's see here. Trees. So there are some trees. So that second page is just an example of what the engineer's estimate looked like. And I just picked one that had some sidewalk and a tree that needed removed. So it'll be, the section of sidewalk that's dashed out, and this is what the homeowner would receive. And then if there's a tree on the property, it would be a tree, and then the cost to remove that tree. And then my plan would be, after the project is over, we would go back through and use the city's tree fund to do tree replacements. And our trees that are on our preferred tree list that go in the sidewalk or the curb lawn area are trees that what we call deep root, and they're smaller, so they're designed so I'm not saying they won't, any tree root can eventually get to a sidewalk, but I think the last thing all of us need is I hope, is no trees in the city. That I don't think that would look very pretty either. So we will come back through, and the city will plant those trees. Another big takeaway is, from my understanding, and we're pretty new at this as a city. A lot of cities have had their programs going for many, many years. Our engineers gave me an example of a city of Sydney has had their program in existence for many years. He said they usually get 70 to 80% of the people on the list actually just do it themselves and don't go through the assessment side of things. And the reason being is you can save about 20% on the cost, because we have to pay prevailing wage once we bid it out. So it is a little more expensive. And he's like, those are rough numbers, but that's just kind of what they have seen as they've moved along with helping other cities develop these programs. So last but not least, I don't have an up-to-date one, but you're welcome to pass this around and take a look at it. So this is a map. This is still a work in progress of the phases. And here's the issue we're running into. So basically, we have $1 million of ARPA money to fund it, because we have to fund all this on the front end. And then once we're able to assess it, you're talking at least 2 years before payment starts coming back in, but we're already trying to start the next year's phase. So this entire phase, say everyone wanted it assessed, we would be on the hook for about $500,000. And this one's a pretty large phase, but it's not an area that is extremely tore up sidewalk wise. So now what I'm trying to do is go through, so we're gonna have to jump around a little bit as far as, we're gonna have to first year take a big section, next year take a section that maybe isn't as bad so it doesn't cost us as much money and start until we start getting some of that assessment funds back, to then the next year doing maybe a worse condition section or a bigger piece of the pie, whichever way you want to look at it. Now, we can change that way, but then we're going to have to say, well, we're going to put money towards it and we're going to fund it. And I didn't think that was a route we probably wanted to travel. So that's my sidewalk talk.
Put a lot of thought into it.
It's been, I have to give a lot of credit to planning and zoning and Katie. They've helped me tremendously through this all, but yeah, it's definitely been a team effort. Any questions?
So, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
The map that you just passed out there, I think you had one of those before. Can you send that out to us again?
I will so that one's not complete but absolutely.
Okay.
So that breaks it down. And I wanted to kind of wait and see where council stood on how aggressive we wanted to be with it as far as how much area and what areas we wanted to go off. So I think that's 11 phases worth to get through the whole city. And obviously there's phases that don't even have sidewalks, so it's not going to be anything at all. And there's phases that have sidewalks everywhere and they're in bad shape that are going to cost a whole lot more money on the front end. And as everything is right now, concrete costs keep going up majorly year after year. Now they're talking about a concrete shortage, and so just wonderful news all around.
Thank you.
What if we have a citizen that knows that might be phase 3 or 4, but wants to get it done? Are we waiving the permit fees on that also?
Absolutely. I actually talked to a citizen who is in a phase and was asking like, hey, what if I came to you and said, I want on phase 1. Personally, I don't see why we
Talk to my neighbor.
I did. Personally, I don't see why we would say no. I mean, it's a pretty simple, we go out, we mark it, we have our engineers give us the estimate, we do the letter. I mean, the process we have to go through for the ORC as far as the assessment side of things. But if somebody wants on it, and just like we put in that letter, for example, if we say, hey, you only have to have 3 sections replaced, those are the only ones that are quote unquote not compliant, but I want all new sidewalks, then I'll, send them our way, give us a call and we'll come out and we'll do the whole thing. I'm not trying to hold anybody back here. If they're wanting to better their property, I guess if it ever got into a situation where we ran out of money, obviously that's where we would have the problem, but I don't think that's going to be the case.
And then the other question I have, so I know we talked a little bit about this before at our other meeting, but there's some, corner houses that have sidewalks going both ways, but on this first phase, it's really not going to affect someone if they have like a corner lot where you're doing the side street and the main street.
Correct. This phase is just the main street.
That is kind of an easier phase. Those residents, if they do have bad front and side, they're going to get hit at a separate time.
Correct.
So have we done the math on if 70 or 80% of the people just do it themselves, what we're going to look like funding?
If 70-80% do it themselves, we're probably looking at more like 100, 150,000.
So if that's the case, we see that in phase one and maybe phase two, could we like maybe step up and not do a 10-year phase, maybe try to shorten that?
Yeah, and possibly it might need to be, because really, once we get going here, we need to start on phase two, like right away.
Right.
Because to give us the time frame to get out and identify, do all the engineers' estimates. Yeah, again, Katie's been fantastic, like the letters, and we have spreadsheets, and there's 650 parcels on this first one that we've had to go through and check the homestead, and she has everything laid out great. But to answer your question, yes, but I think it would have to be more towards phase three.
Okay. So any questions from council? Because look, I think we're going to get a lot of questions and maybe some disgruntled citizens out there. So, the homestead is a big deal. So if you have an elderly person that's on homestead, 30% discount. If we assess it, it's a 5-year pay at 0 interest. If they pay it up front, there's a 5% discount, or they can do it themselves. I think that's kind of like the bullet points that we really need to stress. Pardon?
County will charge you interest.
The county will?
Yeah, I thought there was.
By running the fund, right?
Yes.
On the
They
assessment.
will charge a fee.
Interest or just a fee to assess it?
Just a fee.
I think
Okay.
interest, but-
Just like a bookkeeping fee or,
Correct.
okay. Okay.
And a percentage, that's what I meant to say.
Yes,
I can't
maybe
remember.
2%. I'm not positive.
Okay.
I have to check that out.
Right. But, yeah, just be prepared because there's some questions on this. And I think it's very important. This is something that we should have been doing years and years back. And we've kept kicking this can down the road. So,
Well, and I think, Mr. President, wasn't it 2016 or 17 when we actually tried to, when we were hitting it and marking everything?
Right.
I mean, we wanted to do that in 2017, I think.
17.
it was.
In my 24 years, I think this is the 5th time we've attempted.
all right. Any other questions to Ryan on the sidewalk program? Anything else?
Do we want Mr. Freeman to prepare legislation?
Council?
I'm ready to go forward.
I'd say so.
I'd say yes.
We can't keep kicking the can like you said.
Yeah. Our foot's getting sore. Okay, so I'm seeing everyone shaking their head yes, so. Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Law Director, prepare the legislation. Okay,
Perfect. Thank you. I pass.
Moving on to Law Director, Mr. Reeman.
I will pass, thank you.
Man. All right, City Auditor, Ms. Wilman.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I will pass as well.
Okay.
Ryan took my time.
It's always Ryan's fault.
You guys, to one another,
Committee reports.
be kind.
30 minutes.
Anything in the committee? Okay, moving on to ordinances and resolutions. Number one, we have a resolution.
A resolution authorizing the Safety Service Director to enter into contract with Tomorrow's Technologies Today for the rendering of professional IT services in 2023 and declaring an emergency. This resolution authorizes the Safety Service Director to enter into contract with Tomorrow's Technology Today for the rendering of professional IT services in 2023. This resolution has an emergency clause.
Make a motion to suspend the rules on this resolution and read it by title only. Second and third time.
Moved by Mr. Godwin to suspend the rules, give this resolution second, third reading by title only. Discussion? Call the roll.
Godwin,
Yes.
Norris.
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Schmidt.
Yes.
Whitaker.
Yes.
Ely.
Yes.
A resolution authorizing the Safety Service Director to enter into contract with Tomorrow's Technology Today for the rendering of professional IT services in 2023 and declaring an emergency. A resolution authorizing the Safety Service Director to enter into contract with Tomorrow's Technology Today for the rendering of professional IT services in 2023 and declaring an emergency.
Move to adopt the emergency clause.
Moved by Mr. Rogers to adopt the emergency clause. Discussion? Call the roll.
Godwin,
Yes.
Norris.
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Schmidt.
Yes.
Whitaker.
Yes.
Ely.
Yes.
Move to adopt.
Moved by Mr. Rogers to adopt. Discussion? Call the roll.
Godwin,
Yes.
Norris.
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Schmidt.
Yes.
Whitaker.
Yes.
Ely.
Yes.
Okay, and number two, we have a supplemental ordinance.
An ordinance to make additional appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Greenville, State of Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2023. The supplemental ordinance allows for appropriations in the general waterworks system revenue, sewage disposal, and stormwater utility funds in the sum as follows. Office supplies, IT department, in the amount of $17,498. These funds are needed to cover unemployment benefits for 2023. New equipment, IT department, in the amount of $4,414. New equipment, water department, in the amount of $736. New equipment, wastewater department, in the amount of $736. And new equipment, stormwater utility department, in the amount of $736. These funds are needed for CMI software licensing and rehosting services. Professional services, IT department, in the amount of $54,522. Professional services, water department, in the amount of $8,951. Professional services, wastewater department, in the amount of $8,951. And professional services, stormwater utility department, in the amount of $8,951. These funds are needed to cover professional services by Tomorrow's Technology Today for 2023.
Move to suspend the rules and give this ordinance second and third reading by title only.
Moved by Mr. Rogers to suspend the rules, give this ordinance second, third reading by title only. Discussion? Call the roll.
Godwin,
Yes.
Norris,
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Schmidt.
Yes.
Whitaker.
Yes.
Ely.
Yes.
An ordinance to make additional appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Greenville, State of Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2023. An ordinance to make additional appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Greenville, State of Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2023.
Move to adopt.
Moved by Mr. Whitaker to adopt the ordinance. Discussion? Call the roll.
Godwin,
Yes.
Norris.
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Schmidt.
Yes.
Whitaker.
Yes.
Ely.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to, we have nothing under new business. Under old business, we have a zoning amendment recommendation from planning and zoning.
Mr. President, I move that we table this item.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Schmidt to table this item. Call the roll.
Godwin,
Yes.
Norris.
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Schmidt.
Yes.
Whitaker.
Yes.
Ely.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to letter M, council representing outside committee, Main Street, Greenville.
That would be me. Main Street, Greenville, it's got a lot going on. Our design committee met on Monday, the 13th of March, and it's scheduled a planting day of flower boxes downtown. That's going to be on Saturday, May the 20th from 8 to 10. Anybody that wants to volunteer can contact Main Street, Greenville, and help with the planting of those boxes. Generally, we have plenty of help, but those are the times. We want to congratulate the Sure Shot Tap House, who just celebrated the completion of their 20th or their second year downtown. Just probably seems like 20 for some, but they've been in downtown 2 years and they're doing very well. They've hosted many events and have been doing great. Main Street Greenville participated strongly with the Dark County Chamber Saturday, March 11th for the ribbon cutting of another new business downtown, the Turquoise Door. That's at 322 South Broadway. The owner, Megan Weddings, this is her third location. She's got a location in Coldwater and Fort Laramie. She wanted to get to Greenville and she finally found the spot to put it. They've been doing very well and we wish her all the best. The Chocolate Walk is a very popular event in downtown. It's coming up Saturday, April the 15th. Our new director, April Brubaker, has been very busy working with everyone on the board. Everyone on the board is chipping in quite significantly as far as each one hosting or taking care of one of the first Fridays of the year and spreading out the workload, and everyone's participating greatly. The next First Friday event is Friday, April 7th, and it's called Putting Around. I forgot what it's called, but each shop downtown are being encouraged to put in a small putting green, and then they can kind of keep score, and then they can turn in their scorecard at the Sure Shot Tap House and qualify for prizes. But it's hopefully we'll have a great night. You know, a lot of people They're gonna try to set up a putting green outside too for this in some of the locations, but this should be a fun event. We got a number of places downtown that's participating already, and hopefully we'll have at least 9 holes. 18 will be a tall order, but if we get 9 locations downtown to participate, it'll be a success, I think. Our next meeting is Wednesday, April the 5th at 7:30 a.m. With that, I pass.
Thank you. I met April this morning, and I think she's gonna rock. She'll do really good.
Oh, she's doing a great job. Yeah.
Yep, I'm happy that's a great choice. Moving on, communications.
We received the monthly report of February from the Transit Department.
Okay. Call of council.
Godwin.
Make a motion to suspend or excuse the absences for this month.
Okay, motion to excuse the absence for the month, for this month or last month?
This month.
This month. Call the roll.
Godwin.
Yes.
Norris.
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Schmidt.
Yes.
Whitaker.
Yes.
Ely.
Yes.
Okay. Then I'd like to say thanks for everybody that came up, but they're about all going. So thanks for the department heads for coming, and with that, I'll pass.
Norris.
Yeah, thanks everybody who attended tonight. It was kind of neat with the presentation for the Red Cross, and I appreciate that. As John well knows, softball season has started. GGSA is going to be hosting 5 tournaments this year instead of 4. As far as the weekend, that's the draws from out of state. So we added 1 more this summer, so our work has just started out there, let alone with the Lady Wave program. So with that, I will pass.
Rogers.
Yes, thanks for working with the Early Bird Advocate to try to get that solved. I'm not sure that it'll happen immediately, but thanks for working with that. And thanks to everybody that did come up tonight, and the Red Cross was working real diligently with people and trying to help them out. With that, I pass.
Schmidt.
I'll pass.
Whitaker.
I just want to thank Curtis Lockard for being preemptive and doing those tests on the levels of the vinyl chloride to keep everybody at ease regarding our safety of our water supply is so important, and I think everybody should be at rest for that. Thank you.
Well, I guess I'm up, right? I just want to say thank you again too, and I also want to thank Chief Thomas for doing a report, and that makes it, that makes us feel better to know that we live in a community that takes care of things and works with the community. So thank you very much for that. With that, I pass.
President Baumgartner.
Yeah, just I kind of echo thanks to the department heads coming up. I really appreciate it. It's nice to have if there's a street department question or a fire department, what have you, it's nice to have you folks back there. So thank you for coming up. And then also Mr. Norris, the reason I've got my Greenville stuff on is my daughter, 8th grader, had her first game tonight. So the ballpark's going to be busy. So just careful traveling in those areas. And with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Rogers to adjourn. Call the roll.
Godwin.
Yes.
Norris.
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Schmidt.
Yes.
Whitaker.
Yes.
Ely.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone.